Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. If that's okay with you, Chris.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Thank you to everyone for being here for one of our interactive workshops of the 2021 Amelia Earhart Summit. My name is Julia Kozlowski. I'm the president of Purdue Women in Aerospace this year. A heads up to everyone that we are recording. This will be posted on YouTube. During the lecture, while Chris is speaking, please keep yourself on mute and don't turn your video off. And ask any questions in the chat as they come up, and we will get to them during the sharing sessions. So during sharing and Q&A session, please feel free to unmute yourselves to be a part of the conversation. So a little bit about the Amelia Earhart Summit, as many of you may have heard already. Purdue Women in Aerospace, Graduate Women's Gatherings, and the School of AE started the Amelia Earhart Summit in 2018. This year, the purpose of the summit is to empower students by hosting events that focus on the diverse career paths and experiences from prominent members of the aerospace community. I want to thank Chris Barman for being here today. Chris is currently the Vice President for Global Automotive Solutions at HCL Technologies. Her focus is on identifying and developing emerging solutions in the driver assistance, autonomy, connected and electrified transportation space as the industry transforms from vehicles to mobility devices. Previously, Chris was the principal of New Shore LLC, an advanced technology and strategic consulting firm, the CTO of the industrial sector at Eaton, a diverse power management company, and an executive at Chrysler. She earned an MBA from the University of Michigan, an MS degree in mechanical engineering from Oakland University, and a BS degree in mechanical engineering from Purdue University. I'll now hand it off to Chris. Thank you so much for being here.
Julia, thank you for asking me to be here. I'm very excited to share with everyone this evening an introduction and a discussion around imposter syndrome. So a few running rules before we get started. First, what I want everybody to understand for this session is that we're in a safe environment, and it's a very non-judgmental session that we're going to have today. We need to be respectful and kind to everyone who is participating, and to really have a rich discussion. We may even need to be vulnerable as we exchange dialogue today. So don't feel pressured to share beyond anything that you might want to, but also I want that everybody is very respectful and open to the dialogue that we have today, and very supportive. Second, again, just to reiterate, as Julie had said, we are recording the session. Anything in the main room discussion will be recorded, but anything in your breakout groups that we'll have later are not recorded. So don't have any concerns about things you say in there being recorded for consumption later. So I know that we are on a video session, but you are able to, via chat, raise a hand. So I'm going to ask 3 questions. And if you've ever experienced any of these, I want you to raise your hand. So first, how many of you have ever felt that your achievements were due to luck or chance? The second question, how many of you have ever felt the assignment you completed just was not as good as you would want it to be? And the third question, how many of you are afraid people might find out you just aren't as capable as they think you are? So I can say, for me, I would raise my hand on all 3 of those, because I felt all of those many times. So it's good to know I'm not alone. And what we're going to do today is talk about that a little bit more. So let me advance here. So, one of the questions that we're going to have is, as I just said, am I an imposter? Are you an imposter? And we just went through 3 questions that identify that, hey, there are times where we feel like we are imposters. We just aren't what others think we are, and we're kind of duping our way through things. And the reality is that's just not the case. We are all extremely capable. We are all very accomplished. But we get these feelings that we have that give us a bit of insecurity, and we need to recognize what may be causing those, and then understand what we can do to try to manage those and combat those. And that's what we're going to spend time on today. So first is, let me see what I can do to get this out of the way, because I think you guys can see my screen. All right, so first, what is an imposter? And so imposter, is a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persists despite your evident success. You can be extremely accomplished, get third-party recognition, straight A student, but you just still feel like it's not enough. And it's held by successful people. So it's a belief, it's a pervasive belief. Imposter syndrome is a pervasive belief held by successful people that they are frauds. They just manage to dupe their way to the top. And it's often more common in women than it is in men, but men are affected as well. So what I would like to do is share with you a story of when I felt an imposter. And see if you relate to that. So I joined Chrysler when I graduated from Purdue with my undergraduate in engineering, and had a very long career there, which was very accomplished. But one of the memories that I have of a time where I just didn't understand why I was selected for a position and how could it be that I was given all of this responsibility was when Chrysler went into bankruptcy. And many of you on here may have been too young to have experienced or know about this because it happened in 2009. But in that time frame when the big recession happened, Chrysler went into bankruptcy and we were owned by the government. And it was a very dire time. And when I say dire time, when you would go into work, to give you some examples, there were no office supplies in any of the cabinets. If you wanted a pencil, if you wanted a pen, you needed to bring it home from work. The company had cut out and no longer ordered basic office supplies. The company no longer ordered batteries. So we had clocks on the walls that were powered by batteries that the facilities people came around and took them down off the wall because they weren't going to put batteries back in them because we couldn't afford to buy batteries. Pagers were the technology at the time. If you had a pager, better go home and get your own batteries to power your pager. Those weren't being purchased. I mean, it was bare bones where we were at that point, very dire about whether we were going to survive. And so we came out of bankruptcy under the leadership of Fiat, another automobile manufacturer, and the support of government loans, knowing that they need to be repaid. And with that new leadership, they came in and completely reorganized how we were going to do business and product development, which I had been part of. And we were going to align with how they were organized. So everything that we had known before and done before within our product organization from an organization structure was going to be completely different. So a lot of the job responsibilities were still the same that you do when you go about developing a car. But the structure of the organization was different. And I had, throughout most of my career, really been a component and system focused. So I worked on technologies that got deployed across multiple vehicle programs. And that I was not on the product development side where you focused on the overall development of a single vehicle. And it's a little bit different in how you approach your work in doing that. And so I remember getting the call from a leader in the organization, a very top leader. And he said, "Hey, Chris, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Absolutely. What do you need?" And he said, "Well, I want to tell you about the reorganization we're going through, and I want to tell you about what you're going to be doing." And so he started to explain there was going to be a group that continued to do the technology development, and it was going to be organized a little bit differently than what we had done before. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, that completely makes sense to me that, I'll be part of that organization. To which he proceeded to say, "So that's a part of the organization that's being developed. Now let's talk about the part of the organization you're going to be in." And I thought, well, that's odd because that's really where my talent has been and where I have most of my experience. So why wouldn't they keep me in the area where I've had most of my experience? And he started to talk about the other side and how it was going to shape on how you do overall vehicle development. And he said, so we're going to have an organization that are vehicle lines. And when we have vehicle lines, we'll have people who have ownership of a single car as a leader. And we'll have people who have ownership of a platform where there's multiple programs and vehicles, a complete line that's based off of a platform. And so in my mind, again, I thought, well, wow, this will be really interesting because I've always wanted to own a vehicle program. This is great. So I was like, I know he's going to tell me that I'm getting one of those cars. I'm going to get a car to work on. So I continued listening. He goes, so we're going to line this up and we'll have a group that works on trucks and a group that works on Jeeps. He goes, and there's a group that works on cars. He goes, and you are going to be leading the team and the group that works on the Chrysler 300, the Dodge Charger, and the Dodge Challenger. You will have that platform. To which I then like blew my mind and thought, how could this be? How could this be that three extremely iconic vehicles that are so important to the bottom line of the company because they are high retail sale. We make large margins off of these cars. How could it be that they're giving that to me? I've never led a car program. I don't know how to do that. I know my electrical electronics area. I don't know about body and I don't know about interior, and I've never run a whole program. And I just remember sitting there going, what have they done? And really feeling that was that fraud-like feeling for me. And, and I walked out of it and just kind of said, and when I say I walked out, I had stepped into a conference room. I can still see visually in my mind. I had stepped into a conference room, had been told this information, stayed in there for a minute or two trying to, deal with it. And then I left and I started walking back to where my office was. And then my mind just immediately switched to, okay, whether or not I feel this way, my leadership believes I can do this. And much like an engineer, I'm going to work the plan. Okay, so if this is what I'm going to do, what's going to be my plan? How am I going to approach and attack this problem? How am I going to break it down into bits that I understand, that we start to move forward around the organization itself and who's on my team, around the program itself and what state it's in, on further stakeholders I get to need to know. And just then relaxed into that, working the plan, understanding what to do. And for me, at the end of the day, I felt very good because gathered the team around me, understood where their strengths were versus my strengths. We became a very nucleus of leading that team, and we launched all the products on time, under budget, and received third-party recognition. So definitely a time where I felt that I was a dupe. They didn't understand exactly who they were putting into the job, but it all worked out at the end of the day. So with that, what I would like to do is pause now, and we're going to break out into small group sessions. And amongst those that are in the group, we'll take about 5 minutes and share a time when you may have felt this way and what it was that caused you to feel that way and what you might have done to try and combat those feelings.
Hey guys, I want to thank you for being here for our interactive workshop. I'll just go ahead and get started. Does anyone want to share a time where they felt like an imposter? Anyone at all? Can you guys hear me?
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
No problem.
Right now.
So I can go first. So I actually recently got like a really good internship opportunity for the fall. And even though I haven't really started yet, I'm just like really dreading it and feeling like I got it as almost like a mistake. Like I went through all of the internships or not internship, the interviews and everything, and I got through them. And, clearly I did something right because I got it, but I just feel like I'm not good enough to get it. And I'm just going to get there and like fail at everything.
I think with me it's been like mostly like just getting to this position, in grad school. I feel like okay, how did I manage to get here? And okay, how am I gonna get a job? Because I don't think I'm good enough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
I guess in my situation it's more like I can't think of something that I've had this feeling because I feel like I haven't had anything or any position in it. Just like I feel like my achievements aren't really achievements at all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could totally understand. Like comparing yourself to other people and things like that all the time and like watching people get like the jobs that you want or like even just like exam grades. I totally feel that way.
Yeah, I feel the same way too.
Do you want to share anything, Gabriel? Maybe he's
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree with what you guys were saying, especially in the job side of things. It always feels like whatever you've been working on for the whole year or past 2 years, depending on which year you are in school, and then you don't get the job, but then you see your friends getting jobs.
Yeah.
It feels that way. Like what you've done wasn't good enough. So yeah, I agree.
Are you guys all like grad students or undergrads or
I am undergrad.
and where do you go?
You mean school? Which
Yeah,
school?
do you go to Purdue or
Yeah, Purdue.
okay, cool.
ME at Purdue.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm a grad student as well at Purdue.
Okay, awesome.
I'm an undergrad
At Purdue?
at Purdue.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm undergrad in Aero at Purdue. Well, it was nice talking to you guys. I think we might actually be in the same group for the next sessions. But I think we can all like go back to the main room now, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Starting to come back now, so we'll have some group conversation here in a few minutes or a few seconds. All right, welcome back. I believe we have everybody back from the breakout session. And I'd like to ask from the small groups, would anybody be willing to share some of the dialogue, a summary of some of the dialogue you had, or if there was any theme that you would want some clarity on? I'd like to open it up, just unmute and please share.
I can get started here, Chris, talk about what my group was talking about. So I remember that I had shared that I recently got like a really good opportunity. And, I was given, right, I must have done something right because I got it. And I'm thankful for that. But I also feel like I might have gotten it as like a mistake. And once I actually start, working or I actually, start that opportunity, people are going to notice that I didn't actually deserve it, and that I'm going to make mistakes. And, everyone in my group kind of agreed and also felt like, in the past when I used to see people get really great opportunities that I wanted that I didn't get, I'd feel like, clearly I don't deserve it. And now that I may have gotten an opportunity I really want, I still haven't really changed. Even though I like have it now, I still have the same thoughts like, oh, I still don't deserve it. I don't know why I got it. You know, it must be a mistake.
No, thanks for sharing that. And that is the feelings that come around imposter syndrome, is that, you know, you've done great things, you're being recognized for that, you're being advanced for that, but yet you still feel deficient, or it didn't, you know, for some reason it's a mistake. And that's what we need to talk about. It isn't a mistake. We are very accomplished. We are worthy of having that position. And how do we go about thinking about that differently? Anyone else, would you like to share?
Sure. I'm a first semester master's student, and I was, as part of my work in the lab, put on a research project. Um, but the research project, you know, in my mind, involves a lot of stuff that, like schedule and budget and those sort of things that, you know, aren't necessarily covered in some of your undergraduate coursework, and I feel kind of unprepared for it in a way. So one of the things that I've had to wrestle with over the past few weeks are, you know, being realistic about what do I understand and what do I still need to work on, and then, you know, understanding that line of, did you deserve this, or maybe not, and I don't know. It's been a back and forth.
Well, thanks for sharing that. You know, it really is, it's a struggle when you get those opportunities and there's elements of the job that you might not, you know, feel you already have a grasp on. But what I can share is that will always be part of any new job or position or advancement that you have. So it's unrealistic to think you're going to be the perfect person coming into a job and having all the skill sets. What you really need to do is focus on, you know, what are the strengths that you have that you're being recognized for coming into the position, and where there are areas where you may be developing skills. That's all part of the opportunity, and look at it naturally from that way. So now we'll transition forward, and what I'd like to share is, and let me get my screen going forward here, is you know, what we're going to talk about here is what type of imposter are you? Because there's different types of imposters, and as we talk through these, there may be one or there may be more than one that you identify with, but I'll give a little bit of background on each one to allow you to think about what it might be that's triggering your feelings. So the first is a perfectionist, and a perfectionist sets those excessively high goals. And when they fail to reach those goals, they have self-doubt and they worry about measuring up. And you might be a perfectionist if, you know, if I ask you these questions and it resonates with you. Have you ever been accused of being a micromanager? Or do you have difficulty delegating responsibilities to other people? Or do you feel like your work has to be 100% perfect all the time? And if those resonate with you, there's an element of perfectionism that you're bringing that's to a level that's going to cause imposter syndrome or anxiety. And so the thing to think about here is you don't necessarily want to step away from doing work of a high quality. But if you're holding yourself to an unrealistic expectation, you know, it's good to back off from that to something that's a little more realistic about the work that you're doing. So the next type of imposter is superwoman or superman. And it's a person who pushes harder and harder and harder to try to measure up. They just feel they're not meeting the mark. So some questions that I'll ask to see if it resonates and you think you might want to be that super person is, do you stay later in the office than the rest of the team because you feel you just have to keep advancing on your projects? Do you get stressed when you are not working and you find downtime a waste? Or do you feel you haven't truly earned your title, so you're pressured to work harder and longer to try and prove your worth? So that would be an element of trying to be a super person, and setting those expectations about trying to be a super person could be driving why you have feelings of imposter syndrome. Next would be the natural genius. So the natural genius judges competency based on ease and speed as opposed to efforts. So a natural genius, you know, if you resonate with a question like, do you have a track record of getting straight A's and gold stars on everything you do and feel that you have to do that? Were you told frequently as a child that you were the smart one in the family and even told that amongst your peer group? Or do you often avoid challenges because it's uncomfortable to try something that you're not good at? So if those resonated with you, then that might be, you know, the trigger for you as far as imposter syndrome. And I'll share, when I look at these, I'll be honest, every one of these that I'm going to share with you, at some point in time, I've had those as a trigger for me that brought on imposter syndrome and brought on doubts and brought on some anxiety. So it's good to get an identifier with these to then understand what we can do to try to manage them. So the soloist refuses to ask for assistance and thinks as if asking for help reveals phoniness. And so questions to help identify with this would be, do you firmly feel you need to accomplish things on your own without any help? Do you frame requests in terms of the requirements of the project rather than what it is you need from a person? Or have you ever thought about something and said, I don't need anyone's help? So if you identify with those, you may be a soloist. And next is the expert. And the expert measures competency based on the what and the how much you know and you can do. So do you shy away from applying to job postings unless you meet every single requirement? Are you constantly seeking out training and certifications because you think you need to improve your skills in order to succeed? Or even if you have been in your role for some amount of time, do you often feel like you just don't know enough? And that would be an element of the expert that triggers imposter syndrome for you. So hopefully some of these resonated with you, and maybe more than one did, as I shared with you. What we're going to do again is go into another breakout session for about 5 minutes. What I'd like is when you're in your breakout session, share with each other which ones resonated with you, maybe a time when they did, if it's multiple, what the multiples are, and maybe what you think the triggers are. And we'll get back together again in 5 minutes and share about, you know, what we saw as maybe trends or themes with the group or something that was a really interesting concept. So Arlie, if you can break us out again.
Hello.
Hello, Mercedes.
Hello. So I definitely say that the soloist or like the superwoman like resonated with me the most, because like growing up, I was always like independent, I guess you could say, like of my parents and stuff. I always like to work on my own, like find things on my own. And now that I'm in like a lot of teamwork, I have to like, sometimes I don't know things, so I have to like ask for help. And that's always the hardest thing for me to do. It's just be like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I need help in this. But then I'm also pushing myself to be like better, because I'm like, oh, I don't know this. So that means I have to work a little bit harder. Yeah, I definitely resonate.
So I guess the one that I probably like resonate with the most is the natural genius one. Kind because I find myself like, if I'm good at some things, I expect to be just as good as other things, which obviously is like a stupid thing to think. But something that comes to mind as an example is Mario Kart. I'm really bad at Mario Kart. And for some reason, I just get like so frustrated when I like am not doing well. And it's not just like a regular like, oh, I'm a gamer rage thing, whatever. It's like I'm actually frustrated and I feel incompetent because I'm not good at Mario Kart, which is so stupid. And like, 10 minutes later, after I'm done playing the game, I'm like, that was really dumb. I don't know why I got so upset by that. So I I also feel like I'm more of like the perfectionist part when it comes to things like school. But I definitely resonated with more than one. I like Mercedes was saying.
Everything you just said was so relatable. Like, I feel like I have to be good at everything because I'm really good at some things. And
Yeah.
like, growing up, I was, I guess, like one of the smarter kids and like ambitious and, knew what I wanted. So I feel like that has to translate to all aspects of my life, which is absurd. So I didn't even know that could be part of imposter syndrome, but it's, really making sense to me, seeing all the different subtypes.
For me, I think I like resonate a lot with the soloist, but not because like I like doing stuff like on my own, but more because sometimes I just kind of feel like I'm like imposing on other people to ask for help, and I don't want to do that. And I feel that I should know what I'm doing, and I don't really need or shouldn't need to ask for help, and I don't want to bother anyone. So the soloist kind of resonated with me in that way, but like there was all aspects of like all the other ones that also I kind of connected with.
Totally feel that. Justin, do you have any comments or anything?
Hi, there's a little bit of background noise here, so I apologize for that. But I feel like the perfectionist really resonated with me. And in particular, I think something that really triggers for me is when I see other people knowing something really important that I don't. And sometimes that makes me feel like I'm not measuring up.
Totally feel that. See you guys in the main room.
Love to see what you might want to share from your breakout sessions. So Arlie, does it look like we have everybody back?
Yep, it looks like it. I don't think anyone's lingering in the rooms.
All right, great. So welcome back, everyone. And I hope you had good dialogue, talked about which imposter type or multiple types you might have aligned with or had experienced those feelings before. So is there anybody who can share maybe themes from some of the breakout room discussion, or if you have something that you want to share about what you've learned on this, we'd love to hear about it.
I could say something.
Great.
Hi. So we had 3 women and 1 guy in the room, and we were talking mostly about the problem of being the expert. And the concept is, and this might be helpful to people, that most women will apply for a job or will think that they're qualified for something if they have full mastery over all aspects of it. Whereas guys will say, oh, I've seen a computer, I can apply for this tech expert job. And we had Nicholas in the room who made a very good point, which is he's going into it saying, first of all, I'm going into a new job to gain the experience of that job, which I don't think a lot of us think of it that way. And the other thing is, the attitude of, well, let me just try a couple of different things and see what works out. And this allows so much room for growth. It's taking the other side of the coin perspective. Instead of going, I'm a master, therefore I can do it. It's, I'm going to do it to gain mastery.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Anything else from any of the other groups before we move on? All right, so we will move on. So now we've spent some time and we've talked about, let me get this advanced, We've talked about what is imposter phenomena, and we've identified with that. We talked about what are the types of imposters, and we've talked about that. But the big question is, how can we manage it? When this happens, what can we do to manage these feelings? So, the first thing that we can do is look at failure as an opportunity. Don't look at it as a failure. So when you have that, what you think is a failure, the way you want to look at it as an opportunity is that it makes you look at how much farther you can push boundaries. And that's what I found over time is, and especially as I've done things around, vehicle development or led teams, or even for myself, is if I'm always hitting 100%, I never understand how much farther I could have gone in that. So if I'm holding myself back because of this imposter phenomena that I have to be the perfectionist and it always has to be right, I'm cheating myself on being able to go farther in what I'm doing and stretching myself, my goals. So don't be so concerned about a failure. Look at the failure as I push to the boundaries and beyond, and I know where the limits are. And it's, I think it's a really important thing for ourselves. And I think it's a really important thing that I share with you if you go on to be a leader of people, to help your teams understand that and help them to get comfortable with failure and that it's not always a bad thing. The other thing is that you need to, we all need to recognize there's no right way. We often feel that there has to be one way or there has to be the right way. It isn't the case. And really, when we personalize that, what we have to do is do things our way. We have an extremely unique and very important perspective based on our life experiences, based on our education, based on our training. No excuses for that. Share it. You've got to be you in your conversations. And if other people don't understand, don't take it as, well, I must be wrong and there must be another way. Take it as an opportunity to have an exchange and for everybody to learn more, because they may not understand your perspectives. They may not have had your experiences, and you're cheating that other person from the opportunity to learn. So don't get awkward or feel nervous about, oh, I didn't do it that way, so it's not the right way. There is no wrong way. Accept that some tasks will not be done perfectly. And the way I advise you to think about this and encourage you, because this is one for me that it's taken years to really get past, and I still find myself, I'm in the perfectionist camp and I'm still a work in progress. I'll admit that. A task not being perfect can be an asset. And how it can be an asset is in time savings, so that you're not expending all of that extra energy and effort to try to get it to be 100%. But secondly, it invites more diverse input from your broader team if you leave it a little bit undone. Now, I'm not saying, lower the bar to shoddy work. That's not what I'm encouraging here today. But also understand that there are benefits of not, expending that extra effort and energy to get it to be perfect in that. And that it allows some other thoughts and inputs to come in and add diversity. The next is exhibit confidence in your abilities. So let's think about it. If I were here today and talking in a soft voice and advocating for imposter phenomena, how would you feel about me as the presenter? You have to be confident in what you are saying or what you are presenting or what you are projecting to others. Otherwise, why would anybody else really feel confident about what you're communicating to them? Now, I'm not saying it's easy. There are times where we're extremely nervous about what we have to present, and those butterflies come in and we get those self-doubts. And so I'll share with you, a tool or a tip or a trick that I have and I've kept with time. And I keep it in my Outlook and my email. And I have this one for my personal and I have this one for my work, and I call it a smile folder. And what I put in my smile folder is when somebody sent me an email to compliment me on something I've done. or when somebody sent me a nice email to say they appreciated the feedback I gave them. Something that just resonated with me, that gave me a boost of confidence or a boost of happiness when I read it, I took those away. And when I start to get to a big project or a big presentation or a big something, I'll often just go back and look at my smile folder and I get reminders of, hey, I remember when I had that tough project and it worked out okay and other people recognized me for it. And this one's no different than that. I'm gonna kill this one too. But sometimes it's just helpful to have that little reminder to go back and look at when you've done things well before and get that boost of confidence. This one's a big one. Stop comparing yourself to others. They are not you. They are not your benchmark. It's definitely good to look to other people to get ideas about what you may want to do differently. But your journey has been and will continue to be unique in what you do and the perspectives you bring. So embrace it, share it, and build on it. Find a supportive advisor or mentor. This is extremely important as well. This individual can help you quell your inner critic and remind you of how capable you are. And it's never too early to start this. When I was in freshman engineering at Purdue, I became acquainted with Jane Neal, who is, for many of you may know, is now the Beth Holloway for women in engineering programs. But I got to know Jane Neal, and she was an extreme supporter and a real boost for me and a mentor. And I also got to know a woman by the name of Janet Goings, who is a recruiter from General Motors. And she was a Purdue grad from mechanical engineering, and she would come down on recruiting trips. And as a freshman, I connected with her, and GM didn't hire freshmen, or at least they said that was the case. But I remained and had a connection with Janet for all 4 years I was at Purdue. I actually ended up my freshman year applying for and being granted a GM scholarship, which supported me through schooling. And although upon graduation, I decided to go to Chrysler, I maintained contact with Janet for many years. And so look for those people that'll really just help lift you up and provide guidance. And it's never too early to start that. It still works for me even now. I'm 25 years into my career. I'm 10 weeks into a new job with a new company. And I've reached out to my mentor network to ask them for some coaching and guidance on how I'm approaching things. So it's a lifelong tip that you can take with you. So with that, we're going to break out into our last session of small groups. And what I want you to do in this one is, of these opportunities to manage imposter phenomena, you don't have to pick all one. Pick out one from the list that to you, you think you could really commit to today, actively curating, actively applying, actively using in order to help manage your imposter syndrome going forward. So with that, Arlie, can you break the groups out?
Hello all again.
Hello.
Hi.
So I think one thing that I could probably commit today is stopping like comparing myself to others. Because I always look at upperclassmen, like my roommate's boyfriend is in aerospace and I'm in aerospace too. And he's a year older than me and he's like doing all these cool things. I'm like sitting here like a year below. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing anything cool yet. I just have to like accept that I'll get there one day.
You will get there. Yeah, I feel the same way. The stop comparing yourself to others. I really want to be able to do that, like just automatically, but I've told myself to stop doing that for a really long time, but it just never works. I always find myself comparing myself to other people for everything too. It's not just about like jobs and school and things like that. It's about literally everything.
It's so natural to do that. I feel like most people are comparing themselves to people around them at all times. I think for me, something that resonated was accepting that not everything has to be done perfectly all the time. And that, like, I used to think about it as maybe like a bit of laziness if I didn't do it perfectly. But I really liked the perspective of giving others the opportunity to, you know, contribute and help and get perspectives of others. So I think that's a healthier way to look at task management.
I can relate how it's very hard to stop comparing yourself to others. And I'm not sure if I know what I'm going to commit to today, but I found one thing that was helpful for me. And I come from the aerospace world, but when SpaceX tests a lot of their rockets, they'll say something like, "Oh, this only has a 20% chance of failure," and when it fails, they kind of relish in that as a learning opportunity. And there's not too many other companies that are like that. And so I guess that makes me feel more comfortable with myself when I engage in a project and I don't measure up in the way that I expect.
Yeah, I think I'm with the rest of the group in saying that I want to commit to trying not to compare myself to others. I think, like Devin said, it's like kind of a natural thing that we do. So I guess I just need to try and like look out for it more and just yeah.
I would also say, like, making sure that failure, you know, is used as a learning opportunity for me, you know. So I don't get like swallowed in like, oh, this failed. I must have done something horribly wrong, you know, and using it as a learning opportunity like SpaceX does, you know, so that they can continue improving themselves, you know, so I can continue improving myself, you know, whenever it comes to like either classwork, you know, because you don't pass every exam here, especially with engineering. So you just have to like be used to the failure and then try to get better from that.
Yeah, I started mentoring a student in the fall, and he's just starting graduate school in the engineering department. And I mentioned to him some of the times when I absolutely just failed an engineering exam, so that way he doesn't feel bad if he goes through the same experience.
Arlie, do we have everybody in the main room again?
Yes, we do.
Fantastic. So I'm interested to hear from the breakout sessions, what dialogue happened, and if anybody's willing to share, if they've identified which method they are going to commit to and how they think they might be able to apply it coming out of today's session.
So I want to commit to finding a mentor because I haven't been able to do that since I've gotten to Purdue. I'm a first year PhD student, and it's just so weird with COVID and stuff. So it used to be super easy to meet professors and that sort of thing, but I need to reach out. But one thing that I started doing this year and I've found to be really helpful is I kind of have this other separate calendar that I used to kind of hype myself up, and like I write down what I'm proud of that I did that day. And then for me personally, I struggle with feeling like I don't accomplish things, and I feel like I don't work hard enough, and you know, that sort of thing. So to be able to go back and see a calendar full of things that, even if they're little small things, just to see a calendar where I'm kind of giving myself credit for the things that I've done for that month kind of really makes me feel a lot better about myself. So just thought I would share that.
Hey, no, that is a great method. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to share what they're thinking about which method and what they might commit to?
Sure, I'll share. So our group discussed that sometimes it's difficult to stop comparing yourself to others, or just exhibit confidence in one's abilities, because you're not confident, and that's part of like having that imposter syndrome, that you do not know if you have those abilities, or if you do a good work, then also are the people complimenting you because you're good, or they're just being polite. You never know, because a lot of times this confidence comes from external praises, and if it comes from somebody you do not trust, then you wouldn't believe them, and you wouldn't develop that confidence. So I think to get over that, it's a good solution to that would be to find a person, an advisor or a mentor who you actually trust, and who can guide you and boost your confidence and morale times when you need it. So I think that's something that came out of our discussion, that it's not just supportive advisor or mentor, it's somebody you can actually really trust.
No, that is a fantastic point. And as soon as you said that, a name of a mentor for me immediately popped into my head, because he was the guy that I always knew was just going to give me the straight answer. And he wasn't going to be around the bush, and he wasn't mean in that. He actually was a Indiana farm boy, and just kind of grew up in an environment where you spoke the truth, and, you said things, how you thought they were. And that is an excellent point, that, having somebody who's going to really be truthful with you is so important. So thanks for sharing that. So what I wanted to close with is, okay, so back to that, what did we achieve? And this can go on the list of what we achieved today in this last hour. We've gotten a better understanding of imposter phenomena or imposter syndrome. We've been able to identify the types and which ones may resonate more with us. We have methods now that we can use to manage. We're going to commit to try to apply at least one of these methods, and we've gained a broader network of awesome engineers or just individuals who have attended the session tonight. So now what I would ask is, what questions do you have in general about anything related to imposter syndrome?
I have a question.
Yes.
Have you experienced the case where maybe one of your mentees are experiencing essentially everything on that list at the same time? And what advice do you give to them?
So mentees that I've advised, really what I would say is I've had times where people have come in and they just feel overwhelmed. Or they're feeling like, they're just not, measuring up. And then we'll have some discussions around, okay, what are you trying to measure up to? And is it realistic that you can measure up to that? Or if it's something that's project related and we talk about what has to be done along a certain timeline, is it realistic that you can take all of that on by yourself? And really, we kind of walk through, I try to softly walk through kind of the methods and understand a little bit around what is it that, and it may be multiple that's by yourself to what other people do, because here are things I've seen that I know you do that are outstanding, that other people don't do. So just because you're trying to hone in on one thing and compare yourself in that one narrow area, take a broader perspective and look at things. Take a look at what you're looking to accomplish in the timeline, and is it even realistic? And there have been many times with people, we look at it and almost get to the point where you kind of laugh at the end and go, hey, what you're looking to do, you're superhuman if you think you can do that, so trying to just break it down into simplified elements of what is it that's really the cause. And if it's multiple, those 2 or 3 factors, so it's almost like, trying to do a root cause analysis with multiple factors, taking it back to engineering phrase, and then just really coaching somebody on what to do and being truthful about that. Because again, you don't want to come back with something that's disingenuous and they kind of walk out and go, oh, they're just telling me what I want to hear. You want to be really realistic about, what you're talking about, what it is, and give some good examples and give some tips on how it might help. And for me, when it was somebody that I was looking and they were within my organization, I'd look to see what I could do to help them in what they were trying to do and get them some relief or some support. And if it wasn't in my organization, met somebody I was mentoring in a different group, I'd give them some guidance on where to go to how to get relief in that, so they could start to actively manage things.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Other
Yes.
things you'd like to share? Yeah.
I have one. I wanted to know, what was your experience developing a career as a woman in engineering and technology during the time when there were not many, and if that forced you to into the imposter syndrome, at least in the beginning of your career, because you had to prove yourself, your worth, in a field that is usually dominated by men.
Yeah. So I would say how I approached it, and I think one thing where we have a benefit being in an area of, STEM, is data. And so we don't have to combat opinions about things and that. So a lot of times for me, it was, okay, I may not feel as confident, but I'm confident in the data and I'm confident in what the data says. And so even if somebody wants to argue with me, facts are facts. And so that's for me where a lot of being able to talk about things, was, a good basis in that. Another thing I learned along the way is, from my time with Daimler, I'll share, don't always assume that the men around you are comfortable in that. And yes, it's a network of men, but sometimes they're not comfortable with you, and sometimes they feel awkward engaging. So be a bit gracious about opening the door in conversations and reaching out and having those moments where you can help reduce their anxiety. And it took me a long time to understand this, and where I really it became obvious to me was, I did a 6-month assignment with a group at Mercedes-Benz, where I went to live in Germany, and I embedded in a team of engineers where I was one of one other woman engineer in an department of 200 men.
Wow.
And she was on maternity leave. And I was the only American, male or female. So I was definitely like the unicorn in the group. And I just approached it as a very natural, okay, I'm coming here, I want to learn your culture, tell me about your culture. And what I couldn't understand in the first few weeks was the individual who sat next to me in the open office arrangement was always very formal with me. And I was in my late 20s at the time. We were about the same age in that. And I could tell his personality was extremely jovial. And he would, joke around with all the other guys in the room and haha and this and that. And then if we would talk, he'd become very rigid and very formal, and he'd talk to me. And I happened, and this was really, I think a fortuitous moment for me, is one of the directors of another department's administrative assistant was married to an American. And so she had reached out to me and said, hey, I've heard you're here. And if there's anything I can help you with, or if you're looking for certain American products, we probably know how to get a hold of them, because, my husband's wanted things through the years. So I would, periodically stop by her desk and, hi, how are you? And it was a good break for me. And, it's a woman to talk to, not just a guy. So it was nice from that as well. And so she said to me, she goes, hey, read this joke. I got this joke. And so I'm reading the joke, and it was a little off color in that, but it didn't offend me in that. But I looked, and the guy who sat next to me sent it to her. And I thought it was funny. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, why can't I be part of the joke circle? I want to be in on this. So anyway, I marched back to my desk, and he was there, and I walked up. I was like, hey, wait a minute, we're figuring this out. And I walked up to him and I said, JJ, his name was Yahim Young. I said, JJ, I was just over at Claudia's desk, and she shared with me that joke you sent her about AOL. And I thought it was really funny. I was like, why don't you share jokes like that with me? And as I'm saying this to him, he is like turning bright red up his face, in like clenching his jaw, and like looking scared. And I'm like, JJ, what's wrong? And he goes, you're an American woman, and there's sexual harassment, so I can't send you jokes like that. And I've been told I shouldn't ride in an elevator alone with you. And he started with all of these perceptions he had about sexual harassment that somehow he had heard about American women. And I just looked at him and I said, hey, JJ, how about this? And I told him about, a mildly off-color joke, and we both started laughing. And I said, don't worry about it. When you offend me, or if I think you stepped over a line, I'll tell you, but please don't hold back, and please don't treat me differently. And it really set with me that I walk into the room and I think I'm the one that's so uncomfortable around this, but honestly, I control making other people feel comfortable. And so in doing that, there are things I can do to help lighten the mood, so people relax and they're not so worried about, hey, you are the only woman, and do I really know how to treat you, and what do I have to do? So I've learned over time, offer the olive branch first, have the small talk discussion, do whatever it is that helps set people at ease that, hey, I'm not, I'm really part of the team, and I'm here to be part of the team. And yes, I'm a woman, but I'm here to be part of the team.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Any other questions? I know we're a little bit over time, but I'm more than happy to answer any other questions.
Yeah, I have a question. So one last question. So actually, I'm coming to grad school after a long break, like after 5-6 years.
Okay.
So sometimes I feel like even though if I'm not understanding something, or if I still wish to go and ask for help, I feel my peer group is very younger to me, and somehow I have this weird feeling. And I understand that I feel that they don't understand what my thought process is and how I'm feeling right now. Is it normal to feel after a long break to coming to grad school?
So, what I found in those situations is there's just an element of trying to understand shared learning and collectively where people are coming from. So, you're saying, I don't believe they understand my line of thinking or my training of thought. Share that with them. That's a gift of, this is what I'm thinking and this is why. And it's because of life experiences I've had in the last 5 years while I've been away and out in the field. And yes, things may have progressed in research and academically, but let me share with you kind of how things happen in, I'll say, quote unquote, the real world. I'm assuming you went into industry or something like that, and that may be a wrong assumption, but wherever you went, you gained experience. And it's a gift for you to share that with them and open their eyes to something different and a different perspective. Because, I think, in grad school, and I've gone to grad school, I think you can be very insulated and very insular to what's happening out in a broader world and a broader perspective, and how things may apply when you step out of doing research at some point in your career or in your life. So share that perspective with them of why you're sharing what you're sharing, how it may be different, and how it could help them in the future as they progress in life.
Okay, but the problem is other way around. Sorry, I'm just
I'm
extending
sorry.
my question. The question, what I feel is sometimes whatever is so easy for them to grasp or get the grasp over the fundamental things, since I've been like away from the academic rigor, sometimes I take a lot of time to get things, and then I feel they're doing better, and then I'm really doing bad in everything.
Oh, no, don't worry about that. Ask them to share how they know it, or ask them a good reference. I'll tell you what, one of the things that I do, so I work in automotive, and the technology is evolving so fast, right? We've got autonomy coming, we've got connectivity coming, we want electrification of cars. There's so many elements of what's happening. I mean, we're really talking about it like it's, a connected mobile device more than it's really going to be a car in the future. I can't keep up with everything that's happening, and there are people who are definitely experts, but what I'll always do is I'll ask them where they may be getting their information from, or what they have is what they deem as good sources. And I'll go to those sources and I'll spend some time learning from those and that. And sometimes I have to go back and revisit things over time to make sure that my assumptions are correct, even around laws of physics and things like that. You'd be amazed after 25 years what starts to, make its way out of your brain, and you've got to go back and revisit those. So what I would say is, obviously you have gotten into Purdue, into the graduate program, so you have nothing to make an apology for. You just have to embrace the learning. And again, move forward with the learning, collaborate with others, learn from them. And maybe there's some things they learn faster. There are going to be other things at some point, I guarantee you will be able to share with them that they've not experienced or had. So have confidence in that.
Thank you very much. That helps a lot. Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I think one of the issues that I've come across in my experience is trying to sort of tell, I guess, like a fact from fiction in a way, as to like, when do I genuinely not have the understanding that I need to approach something, like, and should therefore hand it off to someone else or delegate or do something like that, and when am I sort of kidding myself with like imposter syndrome? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, I think there's an element also of, and I remember this coming out of school, and I tried to carry this into my career for a number of years, because when I started working in the area of active chassis systems, and I really stayed in that vein for about 8 years of my career, and really honed in and became known as an expert in that area within, Fiat Chrysler. And, if you would have asked anybody my name, they would have been like, oh, she's like the go-to person on that. And even, as I, took on more leadership responsibility and went to different areas, it's where I was known as being, an expert. But what happens with time is technology changes, and now technology changes so fast, I'd be fooling myself to say, hey, I've got the depth of expertise and everything. And you reach a point where, and it took me a long time to get there, you get humble about, here's what I know, and here's what I don't know, and here's where I believe I can make progress on my own based on my knowledge, and here's where I'm going to need other people's help. And I've gotten to the point where I have enough humility as well when I go into discussions with people and people who are experts. I will ensure that they start below the level of my understanding. Because what I found with time is, if they start at a level that's already below what I believe I understand, we spend the first part of the dialogue at least getting alignment on what we fundamentally think is the same in the technology or the same in the application. And then once we get that sense, as they proceed on, I can better track and follow with what they're trying to tell me. And it's a bit humbling because then when you go into an expert, you're almost giving up knowledge that you have that you want to get credit for, right? Hey, when I walk in, I want them to know I know at least this much information. And what I've learned over time is, it's not worth it. What it's worth is actually going a little bit below the knowledge I know, having a robust and intelligent conversation where we can talk back and forth and establish then up to a common base to the point where now I know, okay, I'm out of my depth and I really do want to learn from you, but I know what I'm going to learn. I'm aligned with your base understanding to be the same as my base understanding. And if during that alignment period, it's not aligned, it's a great conversation around, hey, my experience has been this, but how is your experience that? Because I haven't seen it that way. And I've found through time, sometimes other people say, oh, I've never come across that. Please explain more. So I think it's just, you take some of the humility and you just say, you know what, it's not about if I'm a knowledge expert or proving what amount I have. It's about the time that I spend with this person that I walk away with the most that I can learn. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Appreciate
it. Any other questions? Well, I would like to say thank you for joining today, and I hope that you found this helpful. I appreciate everybody being very open in the conversation. Again, it makes it for a much better session. And I wish you all the best in applying the methodologies and helping to mitigate any imposter syndrome that might start to creep into your thoughts. Let's keep that out. So have a good evening and have a great week. Take care.
Thank you so much, Chris, for being here and for your talk. I thought it was awesome. Thank you everyone for being here. Like Chris was saying, a reminder, this is going to be recorded and put on YouTube, but not the breakout room sessions. Just to make that clear, not the breakout room session.
Great, thanks, Arlie.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
All right, take care. See you guys, bye.
Have a good one.
Bye, Chris.